Today, we're going to be talking about more effective marketing with the buyer's journey. Specifically, we're going to be introducing something called the See, Think, Do framework. If you are a Brilliant Metrics client, you are pretty familiar with the framework, so hopefully we can dive in a little bit deeper and you can get some more value out of this conversation. A couple housekeeping items. One, do post questions into the chat. We will cover them mostly at the end unless it's something urgent and something I need to address early, in which case I'll go ahead and jump on that right away. And a copy of these slides will be emailed to you, if not today, in the next day or two. A little bit about me. My name's Steve Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO here at Brilliant Metrics. My career started out on the technical end of digital marketing, and I've been operating on both sides for about the last 15 years. In addition to my role here, I also teach a variety of courses at UW-Milwaukee's School of Continuing Ed. And I didn't update this slide. My children are thankfully in school and will not interrupt this webinar, so yay. Brilliant Metrics, we are a B2B digital first marketing agency. We don't have any qualms or issues with traditional marketing methods. We think they're great in addition to digital. We just like starting with digital because things are a little bit more measurable and faster to iterate and improve upon. What makes us different from other agencies out there is really our clients rely on us not only to help them with their digital marketing needs, but to help them break through to the next level. And continuously improve themselves, their teams, their results, their technology, the whole nine. Enough about us. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to introduce the See, Think, Do framework after some definitions and getting through that. We'll talk about how we can use this framework to meet the needs of the buyer all the way through their buyer's journey from start to end. We'll talk about how you can apply this framework to tag or categorize all the things and the benefits of doing so. And then finally, we'll introduce a concept of a 2D journey map at the end, taking the basics and leveling that up into something a little bit greater. So when we talk about the buyer's journey as it pertains to digital marketing, really we're talking about another dimension of personalization. Our objective as marketers is to get the right message in front of the right person at the right time. And for the work that we do, we look at that right person component really as a combination of persona and market segment. So persona usually being role, responsibility, as well as worldview, if there's some differences there. Market segment being the industry or market in which they operate. That gets us to the right person. But to really make something hyper relevant, which is what's required in today's day and age to cut through the noise, we need to go one step further, and we need to make sure that we are reaching that person at the right point in their buyer's journey in order to be able to cut through that noise. And that's really where the buyer's journey comes in. And so you can think about it as sort of a three-dimensional space, right? Your prospect is somewhere in this three-dimensional space. Our objective is to figure out where they are and get them just that exact piece of content or message that will really make their world better and get them to engage and hopefully buy. One important thing, a distinction I want to make, and I could not make this text any bigger on this slide without making it obnoxious, is when we talk about the buyer's journey, this is not your sales process or funnel. You have in your CRM some pipeline definition. You have some idea of sales stages with gating and some idea of a funnel in which you put prospects at the top and then they matriculate and get to be fewer and fewer all the way down to the bottom to a closed deal. This is not that, and let me explain why. When we compare these two things, the sales pipeline is a linear process. Your prospects move from A to B to C. They don't move from A to C. Right? And if they do, that's like a grave sin in the sales world. You skipped a step, right? They don't move generally from C to B, right? It's a linear flow of process and pipeline that you move your prospects and your deals through. The buyer's journey is a very non-linear process. If I am in market for a car and something else becomes a higher priority, guess what? I'm not in market for a car anymore. I jump back. I can go straight from having no interest in a car to being on the lot, purchasing a car in a matter of minutes if I totaled my car, right? I mean, like the process of moving through the buyer's journey is very nonlinear, and your prospects are bouncing around constantly. In your sales pipeline, you have some idea of gating criteria. We have to check these boxes before we move this deal over into the next stage. The buyer's journey is all about the prospect state of mind. You don't have any gating criteria for their state of mind. They maintain what their state of mind is. The goal of a sales pipeline or funnel or stages is really to track revenue predictability. So you can understand how much is going to close. It also helps salespeople individually allocate their resources. Where do I need to put my time? You always start with putting your time towards the deals that are most likely to close, that are furthest along in the pipeline. Our goal of buyer's journey and identifying where somebody is in the buyer's journey is just specifically to get the right content to the right person at the right time. That's our only goal here. And it's very different from your objectives from your pipeline on the sales side. Sales pipeline, a really well-defined sales pipeline that is well maintained, provides metrics for both the individual team member to help improve their hit rate, as well as to improve velocity and conversion rates for the organization overall. Buyer's journey doesn't inherently offer any metrics. You know, we're not winning if more people move from one state of mind to another state of mind, because contrary to some marketers' beliefs, we aren't puppeteers. We don't control our prospects' states of mind. Their world controls their states of mind. We can certainly influence that and help guide them along that journey, but we're not pushing people around. And so having any metrics associated with buyer's journey states really isn't, it's not a feedback loop. It's not telling us how good of a job we're doing as marketers. I don't want to say that these two things aren't related. They are, but they're really only related insofar as if a salesperson is able to detect that a state of mind has changed over on the prospect side, that would indicate that either they need to move that deal forward or they need to move that deal off the pipeline, right? It doesn't necessarily, these don't track one for one, and there isn't any strong linkage between them. It's just a salesperson's understanding of where their prospect is in the buyer's journey is going to influence how they position that deal in the pipeline. All right, that clarification out of the way. What does C-Think do, and why do we use that as our methodology around catering to the buyer's journey? C-Think Do is a framework that was put forward by a gentleman by the name of Avinash Kaushik. Brilliant guy, definitely worth going to sign up for his newsletter and read anything he's written, because it's all really good stuff. He put this framework forward because he thought that a lot of the existing frameworks for the buyer's journey were overly convoluted or complicated, or were based on a sales or a company-centric point of view, right? This is where we want to, this is the box we want to put the person in, not the state of mind that that individual is. Because we take a very customer-centric point of view as an agency and with our clients, we immediately jumped all over this. That said, we have modified it, in particular when we get to the last two stages, to meet our needs, because Avinash really kind of bounced around a little bit on where he wanted to go post-sale. So I'm going to go through the framework in and of itself. I'll start with the state of mind that the individual is, and I'll refer to it in the first person as if I am the prospect here. And the bottom half will talk about what that means as a brand. So if I am the prospect and I am in C state, that means I might see your content. I might see content related to your brand or your product or your service. But at this point in time, making any change is not on my radar. I don't perceive any problem or opportunity now or in the future that would indicate that I'm going to need to make a change. And so what that means to you is that your content's going to be filtered out. We have a phenomenal filter mechanism in our brain. If we didn't, we'd go absolutely insane with the number of inputs that we get every single day. Imagine if you're trying to drive and your brain is forcing you to literally read and interpret every single sign, advertisement, or message on someone's t-shirt as you're going down the road. You wouldn't be able to drive a car. Those filters are at work in every aspect of our life every single day. And they keep us sane, they keep us safe, they keep us present in what's going on around us. But they also filter out any messaging or content that isn't going to be relevant in our prospects' eyes. And so the key thing to keep in mind in C state, if I don't have a problem or an opportunity on the top of my, clear in the front of my brain, those walls, those filters are up. We'll talk about how to get around that a little bit, but it's a flat out rule. Now, as a prospect, I enter into think state. At this point, I have a problem or an opportunity. There's either something wrong or I perceive some potential opportunity down the road that I want to take advantage of that causes me to question the current state. It causes me to consider or anticipate a change down the road. This could be my boss coming into my office and telling me, hey, we need to make a change here, or this could be a customer of mine saying, hey, this project is a go. Now, all of a sudden, I have some need in the future, but it's not firm. It's not firm enough that I've made a commitment to myself or to my boss or my spouse or my customer or my client or anyone else to actually take action. More importantly, there's not a timeline associated with any change. So at this point, I'm in think state. I'm thinking about something. But here's the thing. As soon as you enter think state, your eyes are now open. Think about the last time, and I'm going to come back to this car example a couple of times during this webinar, but think about the last time that you started thinking about buying a new car, and maybe you started looking at a particular model of car. All of a sudden, you saw that model of car everywhere when you hardly ever noticed it before. And that's because you entered into this think state and those filters drop down. All of a sudden, that part of your brain that's you rely on to filter out all the unnecessary noise is letting some stuff in because it thinks it's now necessary. However, you don't have a time frame associated with this car purchase. That's where do state comes in. So as I enter do state, at this point, I now have made a commitment to myself or to somebody else to make a change. Generally, that change has a timeline associated with it, either as soon as possible or on or before a certain date. It really isn't do state if there isn't some sort of time frame associated with this change. That means that this person is now prepared to possibly engage with sales proactively, pick up the phone or fill out a form online, etc. More often than not, they don't want to do that even in do state, as we have gotten trained to use self-service tools and utilities as our antisocial genes have taken over, and particularly with the younger generation, we just don't want to talk to people. But they'll often take a call from a salesperson at this point if it's outbound. So detecting this state is really great for being able to direct sales. This covers our prospects, but what about our customers? So again, jumping in first person, if I am in grow state, it means not only am I an active customer or a recent customer, but I'm also in sort of this limbo where I'm happy with the state of affairs. I don't need anything new. I don't need a new product or service. There's no opportunity or problem sitting in my future that's going to dictate me engaging in more content or anything else. But I am an active or an existing customer. So in contrast with C-state, not all information is going to be filtered out. You send me an email and tell me I have an invoice for $16,000 when I'm expecting 160. I'm gonna open that email and read it. But much of your content will probably get filtered out because it's not relevant. I don't see any need to change or anything like that. So you can have existing customers that are in think or do, or their default state's going to be in grow, provided they have purchased within some time frame of recency. The final state is my favorite, and that is give. Not only if I'm in give state, not only am I a recent or an active customer, but I had such a great experience that I feel like I received enough value that I actually owe you, the vendor, something for that great experience. This is a fabulous place to have your customers, because these customers are the ones that are eager to offer referrals, testimonials, case studies, reviews, all of those wonderful things that you can use to continue to grow. And so if you're able to detect when your customers or clients are in this state of mind, you can capitalize on that. We'll talk about how a little bit later. So these are the 5 journey states. After the webinar, you're going to receive an email with a link to download a nice little 8.5 by 11 printable version of this if you want to put it up in your office or cube or home office or wherever and be able to refer to it. It's really helpful when you're thinking about content to think about which one of these buckets you're trying to direct that content into. I've not seen any questions in the chat. I do want to encourage, we have a small group today, but I do want to encourage those on the line to pop a question or two in the chat. Moving forward, we're going to jump into catering to that journey. So now we have this framework. How do we apply this when we're trying to create experiences for our prospects and customers? Let's talk about C and grow state. Now, again, in C and grow state, my filters are up. I'm not generally open to any content that is of any sort of sales or even problem solution type of content. It needs to be relevant to where I'm at today, which is not in market for your product or service for me to even consider it. There's 3 ways we can approach that. The first is something called the mirror exposure effect. This is one of my favorite psychological phenomena. What I have up on the screen right now is a list of nonsense words that have been that were published in the newspapers of 2 Michigan universities. And all of the words were published just randomly on the front page with no explanation in both sets of newspapers, but they were published at different frequencies. At one university, half the words were published just once or twice, and the other half were published a lot of times. At the other university, the lists were flipped. And what the researchers did is they then went and surveyed the student populations at both of the 2 universities. And what they asked is, can you please review this list of words, and can you rate these words on how good you think this concept or what this word means is? So if you think this word means something good, something you'd want, or something that you'd want to have happen to you, rate it high, a 5. If you think this is something that you don't want to have happen to you, rate it a 0, and go ahead and rate it any number in between. And they averaged the results. And what was fascinating was that the words that were published at a high frequency were generally perceived to be more good. They had a positive association with them. And the words that were published at a lower frequency had a more negative association with them. And this was true universally across the board. So what does this mean to us as marketers? Well, it means simply repeated presentation of your brand, regardless of context or other information presented at the same time, just your brand name or your logo. Repeated presentation of your brand will result in greater goodwill for your brand. It means that people will associate your brand as something good. And you can think about this in terms of a caveman brain. I see a snake for the first time, I'm going to freak out a little bit. But if I walk past that snake daily, every single day, and that snake doesn't bite me, I start to think that that snake maybe is my friend or at least okay. That which doesn't hurt you repeatedly is inherently good if you're a caveman, and part of that brain wiring still exists apparently today. So targeting people in C state, we just want to get in front of them over and over and over again. And if we actually want engagement, though, we have to jump to a different tactic. Again, people in C state, their filters are up for anything related to your product or service. So if you want to circumvent that, you have to provide something of tangential value. Now, we're not a HubSpot agency, but I'm going to use HubSpot as an example here because they did a great job of this in a tool they published many years ago called the Website Grader. And HubSpot's Website Grader will let any marketer pop in a website, and it'll give you some analysis and reporting on whether or not your website is good, bad, or ugly, and why. That's a tool that is of value to any marketer, regardless of whether they're in market for marketing automation software or not. So you try to reach that marketer and talk to them about the virtues of marketing automation or the virtues of email marketing or how to do email marketing better or something else like that. And they perceive no problem or opportunity on the email marketing or marketing automation front. They're going to be closed to that message. But you give them an opportunity to go and see how their website ranks compared to others, they'll jump at it. And of course, in order to do that, you have to provide an email address. So now we know we have a marketer that cares about how well their website performs. If they care about how well their website performs, they probably also care about how well their email marketing performs. And we can start talking to them about that a little bit too. So tangential value, and it could be in the form of content, it could be in the form of a tool or utility, is a great way to circumvent the filter of somebody who is in C state and they're closed to the problems or opportunities that your solution solves for. And finally, the last opportunity here is entertainment. If I could get a favor either from one of the BrillMet team members or somebody else in the call, if you can just let me know if the sound works on this in chat, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to play a little ad here.
Has your relationship seen any hard times?
Well, yeah. I think every business goes through hard times with their customers.
When we first met, his customer service was just awful.
I didn't think I had the time or the resources for it.
I would call.
She would call.
I would email.
I was not very good at listening in those days. I was very overwhelmed.
Oh, so I started complaining. I told my bridge club, my sister Lorraine, and my 41,000 Twitter followers.
That hurt. Very public.
So, what happened?
Well, that's when I got Zendesk for my customer service.
That made it a real relationship.
Zendesk helped me become the business I always wanted to be.
I like it when he gives me the business. No, don't be old-fashioned. No, it didn't mean anything.
I told you a million times.
So as marketers in the B2B space, we often think entertainment isn't really appropriate, but depending on your brand, as is evidenced by this little video here, you can have a lot of fun with it. There's absolutely opportunities to bring entertainment value into B2B marketing and advertising. And we all like to be entertained regardless of what state of mind we're in. So it's a great way to introduce, to get around that C state filter. Let's talk about think state. Think state is that point where you have that opportunity or problem that you need help with, but you have made no commitment to yourself or anyone else to act. So at this point, it's just something sitting off in the future, but your guard is down, your filter is down, right? So you're letting some of those messages through. There's really two ways we can address think state. One is to educate and inform. And our objective here is to add value, to help somebody think about the things they aren't necessarily thinking about maybe, or to frame that buying decision a little bit differently, ideally in our favor. We're not going to go and publish some blog post or some research report or something along those lines that indicates you need to go with a competitor. But we are going to try and do this as objectively and as value adding as possible, because this is the opportunity. This is the point at which they're actually making the decision is in think state. And I'll get to why in a little bit. So here I've got 7 must-read first-time home buyer tips. This is published by Better Mortgage. Well, they're not selling a mortgage in here, but they're giving you everything you need to think about before buying a home. And guess what? One of those things is going to be something about a mortgage, and kind of indicates why Better Mortgage might be the best value. Along similar lines, but different, if they have a problem or an opportunity, you can rub a little salt in that wound. You can increase the urgency or turn up the heat on either the opportunity or the problem. So Human Capital Institute is actually, it sounds like it's a nonprofit. It's a very much so for-profit business. And here they talk about lack of clarity in the workplace is costing your organization. So they're bringing to surface all of the issues that may be coming up that could be causing, could be costing your organization more that you aren't necessarily thinking about. That may be enough to tip somebody from think over to do. Or it may be just the kind of thing they're going to rely on or recall when they're trying to convince themselves to move forward. So that's think state. Let's jump to do state. Before we jump too far into do state, well, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Our goal in do state is at this point, somebody's made a commitment to act. You want to make sure they act with you and not with one of your competitors. And one of the key ways you can do that is simply by providing the smoothest experience. I can't tell you how lazy prospects really are when it comes to reaching out. If they encounter a form that asks them, 15 questions, and one of those questions is something they can't answer quickly without having to sit and think about it, they'll move on to the next vendor that doesn't give them 15 questions to get an answer. If they submit a form and don't get a call back for 4 days from you, but they got a call back the next day from somebody else, they may move forward with the one they got the call back from first just because it was easier. So your objective as a marketer is to just reduce as much friction as possible for somebody who does want to buy. Don't ask them for a bunch of information you don't need or that you don't need immediately. Like, just get their name and their company so you have some idea of what it is that they might, and some idea of what they might want, and then roll with it and run. Be very crystal clear on the process after the fact. If I fill out a form on your website, before I even fill out the form, don't just say, how can I help you? Say, fill out this form to receive a quote, or fill out this form and a member of our, we'll get you in touch with the right member of our team, implying that there's some value to them filling out the form to get you where you need to be. Make sure that you're saying what they're going to get out of that form, what the next steps, and what they can expect. And that may require some organizational change because you might not have consistency in that experience after the fact. If you can get it, get that consistency. After you've removed all of that friction, the other thing that you can do inside of do state is really, we call it enable self-rationalization. By the time somebody is in do state, they've already made a decision. They might not realize that they've made a decision. And this is where, again, some of the neuropsychology or the neuromarketing components of this get really fascinating. We make decisions emotionally, and we make them before we think we make them. And there have been countless studies to go and prove that. we make the decision emotionally, and then we make up the reason as to why we made the decision rationally after the fact. Most of the time, because our rational brain is operating off of the same inputs as our emotional brain, those two things line up, but sometimes they don't. There was a fascinating study that was run, I think back in the 60s when this was considered ethical. There was a group of patients who had really bad seizures, epileptic seizures. And at the time, medical science wasn't where it is today. And the best they could do to fix that was to cut. It's called the colibris callosum, I think. It's this band of fibers between the two hemispheres of the brain. What's interesting is the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body, and the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body, with a couple exceptions for the things that sit in the middle of your body, like your mouth. And your mouth in particular and all of your speech is actually controlled on the right side. But your eyes are also that way too. So if I want to talk to your right brain, I put something in front of your left eye only. And if I want to talk to your left brain, I put something in front of your right eye only. And what they did in this experiment is they put a message directing somebody to say, get up and walk around the kitchen in front of the person's right eye. Now that went to their left brain, and the person would get up and walk around the kitchen. Then they would ask that person, why did you just get up and walk around the kitchen? Now, the left brain would try to reply, well, because you told me to, but the left brain can't control the mouth. So the left brain couldn't reply. Only the right brain could reply. And the right brain had absolutely no idea why they just got up and walked around the kitchen, because it was only the left brain that was told to do so. What the right brain would reply is because I felt like it, or because I needed to stretch my legs, or because Y, or X, Y, or Z. Never once did a single patient in this scenario ever say, I don't know why I did that. They would make up a reason on the spot and firmly believe that they knew that reason to be true. We don't make decisions logically. We make decisions emotionally, and then we make up the reason after the fact. So when you're marketing to do state, you are trying to rationalize why they chose you in think state. You're trying to provide the content that helps them get their head around why they chose you, and which was an emotional decision, ideally through how you framed that buying decision back in think state, or how you built a relationship or built a brand earlier in the buyer's journey. You're trying to really help them rationalize that to themselves. And you can do that through case studies. You can do that through articles. You can do that through blog posts. You can do that through videos. Call it features and benefits, problem solutions, etc. You're giving them reasons why they chose you in the first place. But it's not just themselves they need to rationalize that decision, because at the end of the day, somebody in do state isn't operating alone. We're seeing articles all over the place on how the buying committee just keeps getting bigger year after year with no seeming end in sight, to the point that I'm hearing stats like 13 people on average are involved in a B2B buying decision. Well, that means that your champion, the person who's decided that you're the vendor that we're going to move forward with, has to convince 12 other people that you're the vendor that we're going to move forward with. And so ideally, you give them all the tools to not only rationalize that decision to themselves, but also to everybody else on the team. I know a lot of organizations think that case studies are ideal early in the buying process, because it convinces somebody to act and buy from you. The reality is a case study is the best tool for somebody who has to go and convince a bunch of their peers as to why they should go with your company. But they made that decision long before reading that case study, because there's no reason I would read that case study unless I was looking for a rationalization for why I'd already chosen your firm. All right. I don't have grow state in here because grow state is pretty much the same as C state. You're going to do all the same things, but I do want to talk about give state a little bit. Here, it's less a matter of catering to give state and more a matter of capitalizing on it. And so when we have customers or clients that are in a give state of mind, and they feel like they've had such a great experience from your organization, they actually feel like they owe you, you're leaving money on the table not to capitalize on that. And they're happy to give, so take. And the way we do that is twofold. First, we have to identify those in give state. And the best way to do it, and folks that are BrillMac clients will recognize this right away on the screen, is just simply ask. And we're big fans of the Net Promoter Score, NPS format for asking this. How likely are you to recommend us? And if somebody replies a 9 or a 10, that's an indicator that they are in give state or likely in give state. That or they just like high numbers, or they're afraid to give you anything lower. But most of the time, those folks are in give state. So if somebody gives you a 9 or a 10, you just need to turn around with an appropriate call to action. And so that could be, can we interview about your experience? Boom, you've got a video testimonial, just recorded on Zoom. Could you please post an honest review of our services on insert platform name here? They already rated you 9 or 10. You're going to get a positive review. Who in your network do you think would get value from an introduction to us? Go ahead and solicit a referral. If we were talking to another company or industry, are you interested in serving as a reference? Salespeople regularly need references and reference clients or customers to be able to go and refer. Provide a prospect, somebody to go and check their assumptions on your organization. And that's how we got some of the testimonials you'll see on our homepage. It's through this exact process. Okay, so we talked about how to cater to each journey state. The next step is you're producing content. You've got people in your database. You've got advertising and marketing and media out there. None of this does any good unless you actually align your content, your media, your advertising, your stuff with your audience. And so let's talk about how to do that. How do you create that alignment? The first step is to audit what you've got. And we are big fans of running a content audit against everything that you've got right now that you've produced. This includes all the pages of your website. This includes every white paper or blog post you've published. This includes videos that you've created, everything. Go through and identify what journey state does that align with. Where in the buyer's journey would somebody get value out of this piece of content based on everything we just talked about? When you do this, you're going to find inevitably, at least every client we've worked with, that there are holes, there are places that you're light. Maybe you're light in think state. Maybe you have nothing for see state because you've been so focused on later in the buyer's journey. Maybe you're doing very little on do state of actually getting people to act who have already made the decision to move forward and greasing the skids and giving them that exit ramp to actually come on and start the sales process. You'll find gaps in the process when you do this. While you're at it, go ahead and catalog for the the target persona and market segment. It's not within the context of this particular webinar, but if you're producing content that is for everybody, it's for nobody. And so recognize where you've got content that is not targeted at a given market segment or persona, or ideally both. Doesn't mean it isn't applicable to others, but you need to have one person in mind that you're going to really nail with every piece of content you produce. Once you've done your audit, the next step is tagging. And we say tagging, I mean a couple of different things. For people, we're looking at making sure that inside of our Salesforce or CRM or marketing automation platform, that we have a field or use of another mechanism to annotate what journey state that person is in. Now, for us and our clients, we generally do this in the marketing automation platform, and we usually leverage tags as a mechanism for doing this, because by applying tags to our records inside of marketing automation, we have both the ability to pull that tag off after an expiration date, and we can apply multiple tags because people can actually be in multiple states within the journey when we move to that 2D journey map we'll talk about down the road here. Have some place to control this. You should also have, obviously, tags in your CRM for market segment, subsegment, persona as well. Tag your pages. Every page or piece of content on your website ought to have some metadata associated with it. So we do this with WordPress usually by adding that metadata into WordPress through something called custom fields that lets us push that information back out, which I'll show you a little bit in a second. But if you have everything tagged, then you have that information in a digital format in the content management system that you can take action on it. And again, I'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, links. You can get a lot of value if you tag your links. So if I put an ad out there that only somebody in due state is going to click on, I want to mark that ad as due and just add something to the URL at the end. You can add all kinds of URL parameters at the end of your URL. That's the stuff after the question mark, this equals that, without breaking most URLs. So test, but add something out there that you do consistently for things that are a given journey state. When you do this, what you'll find is that you'll have your content management system will have its pages tagged, your links will be tagged, your Salesforce or CRM fields or marketing automation fields will be tagged. And if you can identify the visitors to your website based on their record inside of that system, you can feed their journey state into Google Tag Manager or another tag management platform. Most people use Tag Manager these days. Once it's there, you can use that information to go and push to analytics. You can push that information over to Facebook, so you can build audiences off of what journey state people are in. You can push that information to Google Ads or any other display advertising platform, etc. And now you have that data to take action on. You can look in analytics and see, okay, people that are in due state are generally looking at these pages, or people that are in this state are generally looking at these pages. There's a lot of action you can take on it in analytics. Retargeting is huge. Take advantage of this, not based on what page somebody looked at, but what's their state of mind? Where's their head at? Retarget off that. It's way more valuable. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of exactly how to wire all of this up. That may be a future webinar, but it's out of scope for today. Certainly happy to talk about it with anybody who'd like to talk about it. I went through the basic See, Think, Do framework. But to really get the most mileage out of this, and we'll often start with a client within that basic See, Think, Do framework. So don't think it's a bad place to start. It's a great place to start. But to really get the most mileage out of all of this, you have to break things down a little bit further. So we call this taking our buyer's journey from one dimension, See, Think, Do, Grow, Give, to 2 dimensions, and starting saying, well, okay, within Think, where can we be? And within Do, where can we be? And let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to start with Think, and why will make sense in a moment. Most organizations have multiple opportunities or problems that could cause somebody to end up in Think state. You might call these triggers, closely related to the jobs to be done framework if you're a fan of that. But really it is, why am I in Think state? What problem or opportunity put me here? So for Brilliant Metrics in the marketing and advertising we do for ourselves, we're really looking at buckets like, well, I've got a strategy problem. Something's strategically wrong here, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. Or I've got a MarTech opportunity here. We're behind, and if we can get some additional marketing technology in place, I think that we can leapfrog our competitors, or we can improve our revenue or sales or whatever it might be. Or maybe I've got an execution challenge. I'm short resources, right? Those are the problems or the opportunities buckets that we've identified here. For you, you're going to have a similar situation there. We generally advocate using those as your Think states. There are a couple of exceptions, one of which is on this webinar, or on the webinar call, I see, but at any rate, Do, however, is a little bit different. You don't want to break this down necessarily by your problems or your triggers. Here, you want to break this down by your solutions. And so sometimes there's a relationship between your Think states and your Do states, and they sit in a nice little neat hierarchy. Most of the time, that hierarchy is messy and it's not perfect. But this is where what do you offer as a vendor to go and solve for those problems or solutions that we talked about in Think state? Because as a buyer, by the time I get to due state, I pretty much know how I'm going to solve my problem. By the time I've made a commitment to somebody else, I might have a couple of different avenues I'm chasing down at the same time. But if I've decided I'm going to act, I probably have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to act. Again, we've made the decision before we enter due state, probably about which vendor I'm going to go with and what direction I'm going to go. So if that's the case, align your content and your people and your advertising and everything else along the solutions that you are offering. This is not an exhaustive list for BrillMet. We actually have a lot of due states, but things like, we offer workshops. We can be a full service agency to you. We can offer Marketo consulting. We can create content for you. Those different doors that you might come into to work with us, we've identified as our core due states. They're related to the service offerings that we offer. So again, think has to do with what problem or solution is in that prospect's mind that got them there. Do has to do with what solution did they jump to based on the problem or opportunity that they encountered in think state that they're now researching and we need to provide content around. And then finally, just to make things kind of nice and tidy, we generally lump see, grow, and give loosely together, and we tag everything as either see or give. We kind of skip the grow for the most part because there's usually a field somewhere in the database that says whether they're a customer or not. And it's largely irrelevant, honestly, because anybody who is in grow has just as much opportunity to move into think or do, either because they're reevaluating your solution or because they want to add on to it. So we treat see, grow, and give roughly synonymously, with the exception of give, where we try to capitalize on that want to give back. So all said and done, our 1D journey map goes from looking like this over to 2D. And these are the tags that we're putting on records inside of our marketing automation or CRM system. These are the labels that we're applying to every piece of content. And now all of a sudden that framework starts to make a little bit more sense. Am I producing a piece of content that speaks to somebody who is thinking about a strategy, problem, or opportunity? Or am I producing a piece of content about somebody who's thinking about a MarTech solution or opportunity or problem, right? And then down here, what am I at? What is my CTA? What am I creating that really smooth off-ramp or on-ramp for them to become a customer or client of ours? Am I creating a really smooth on-ramp for them to sign up for a workshop, or a really smooth on-ramp for them to become a full service client, or whatever it might be? And again, our list is pretty long for these due states, but we don't focus on all of them all the time. There's a little bit more that goes into this. Again, we're coming up on time here. It's out of scope for this webinar, but play around with this idea and see how you can incorporate this into your marketing, your advertising, in order to really reach the right person at the right time with that right message. And with that, I didn't see any questions in the chat, but that doesn't mean it's too late to ask. So please do take a moment to pop something in the chat. While you're doing that, I'll explain this QR code over here. If you came in through LinkedIn, you may or may not have had a chance to fill out a form. We don't know who you are. We can't send you these slides unless you do something. So please do fill out this form here in order to get a copy of the slides. Or you can visit this URL right here. Same thing is true if you're watching this recording after the fact on YouTube or someplace else. Okay, with that, does anyone have any questions? Okay, it looks like the answer to that is no, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly. And if you have any questions about how this might apply to you, please feel free to set us some time. Happy to talk. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.